I was born in the 80s, everyone had like a record player. I used to, at home, I was about 4 or 5 years old, and I used to copy songs that I liked off of the album on records onto tape, and I used to dub them over with a little microphone. And then started messing around with the sounds. I had like Sony Sound Forge, and I used to record my voice speaking and do things like reversing it, slowing it down, putting reverb on it, messing around with it like that. This one is Wednesday's Child, and Wednesday's Child is full of woe, so it's that darker, moodier style of my production. Subject matter I'm trying to keep consistent. Not so much. I mean, it is a story from beginning to end, because I suppose a lot of it involves my journey. Looking to release it differently, do like a conceptual music video per song. Premise is the album will start to be released before it's even finished. It can sort of flow, gauge responses, use that to continue to narrate the journey. I find that production is definitely one of them. Sometimes when you're rapping or you're singing your problems or rapping your problems to the beat. Like, the beat is the psychologist on the chair. Creating the beat, it also helps me through a difficult time. Rapping is what I started with, then I got into rap, but then from there I got into production as well, because no one would produce me beats, so I had to do it myself. Equipment wasn't like equipment is now. It's not USB. It never came with cables. Nothing ever came with cables. I mean, now you'll get a set of studio monitor speakers and they'll come with nothing good, nothing high quality, but they'll come with a little jack. Now it doesn't even come with that. Synthesizers don't even come with power supplies. Logic 7 I paid £800 for. You couldn't use it without the USB. I think they figured if they could crack it, then people would buy their computers. The question was always, would you buy an Apple Mac? And it's like, well, no, because I'd have to spend £2,000 on an Apple Mac plus £800 on the software. And then suddenly software just became more available, lowered in price and stuff like that, available for people to crack and download. I think my first ever studio, I bought an Access Virus synthesizer, like the original Access Virus. I found it on eBay or something for like £600. I could probably sell it now for more than that, and that was coming out of a little 14-inch square mono TV speaker. I didn't even have any MIDI cables to be able to actually play it. I'd just plug it in, switch it on, and it would just have these lights flashing on it, and if I turned the dials, the lights would change speed, and I'd be like, alright, great, now how do I get sound? And then I had to sort of go and find out, start speaking to like studio showroom specialists. I used to go into the basement and just like quickly produce a beat and then just leave it playing and walk out, that kind of stuff. I got a job so I could buy speakers. I suppose everything's become a lot easier to mix because the sound design element of it's already there. The sound of music, whether the instruments are the same or not, will become a little bit more standardized. It's not a bad thing. I mean, it definitely shows people's creativity. Even just that kind of accessibility, you wouldn't have had like punk music, you wouldn't have had dubstep, grime. Every now and again music has to go through stages of building in sort of musicality, and then once it reaches the pinnacle of wherever it can reach in that genre, then it has to then borrow from the world of sound again. And obviously since industrialization and stuff, you can see that happening again and again. Dubstep is a really good example of that happening, where they'd sort of go back into the sound of music now, and it's like, right now we've got this raw early 2002 dubstep, early 2000s sort of dubstep, where it's just this raw bass and these like sparse rhythms that sort of keep your head bobbing. And then obviously when you sort of bring in different elements of sound from other genres, you're still keeping it on that kind of raw energy. And then when they start to sort of commercialize it, you can hear musicality sort of building up in it. So you'd have more sort of experienced players now borrowing from these sounds of possibly less experienced players, but just hands-on, gritty production. And then you'd see the musicality building up until it can't really build up that much anymore. And then something else will take its place which borrows from that sort of world of gritty sound. I think it was sort of the same premise that Kanye West was going on with his Yeezus album. Not sure how well executed it was, but that's where he was going with it. And it's that kind of just borrowing from raw sound. And as time progresses, we've got different sounds now. You know, before you had sounds of industrialization, and then it moves into more robotic electronic sounds. We hear bleeps all the time when we're in the supermarket, and drone quadcopters have that specific kind of electronic sound that sounds really clean and really modern. So it is that, you know, having to borrow again from the world of sound to recraft music. My mum has a really eclectic taste in music. Hungarian folk music, classical music, Black Sabbath, anything disco, funky. Because of my granddad, there was a lot of reggae growing up in the house. Ska, a lot of mento, a lot of Spanish music. We're not Spanish, they'd be playing literally everything growing up. In a musical artist. Artistic integrity, being sure of what you do and not just following what the crowd does, but borrowing influence from the crowd is fine. The bandwagon here or there is fine, but still having that artistic integrity and having the ability to connect with that sort of feeling with other people. It's about having that sense of genius, where it's like genius, but genius in interpreting the world around you and giving something back into it as well. You know, being torn between being a people pleaser and artistic integrity. You're always torn between those, and always torn between where the trends are going at the moment. You know, you realise that, well, time is eternal and you've only got a limited amount of it, so for you to do with that time what you can. There are like 6 billion people in the world. They tell you 20 depressing stories a day. There are at least 6 billion stories in the world that day. That's if everyone only had one story each per day. Some people might be ill, they might not have any stories that day. But some people have 4 or 5, so it balances, you know. So there are so many stories in the world. So many stories need to be told. So many people need to feel like they can relate to other people. So many people who are maybe misunderstood and feel like no one else understands them need to feel like they've got something to connect with, rather than just having, I mean, sometimes escapism's great. So having that escapism kind of music as well, which is around, is great. But sometimes you need reflection music. Sometimes you need to reflect. You can't just always escape. You have to sometimes face your problems, and it's always good to know that there can be other people there who have felt the same things that you felt before as well, to give it that same kind of connection. I would want the people who feel misunderstood or less understood, I want them to sort of feel understood and know that no matter how wacky or wherever the creative parts of your brain might take you sometimes, to just know that that's perfectly fine, perfectly acceptable, and just to feel validated in the same way that I felt validated when I listened to other artists' music while I was growing up.